Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, we find ourselves in a village that's terrorized by werewolves. The mayor has found a magic word, and if everyone says it together, the werewolves will be driven from our village forever. However, the power of this magic word has rendered the mayor speechless, so he can only answer yes or no questions with tokens. Your seer also knows the magic word, but she must hide from the werewolves already among you, and somehow those dastardly werewolves also know the magic word and want to prevent you from learning it. As werewolves howl in the distance, you only have 4 minutes to discover the magic word, protect your seer, and save your village. Werewords Deluxe Edition is the hidden identity word game for 2 to 20 players by Bezier Games, and it's on Kickstarter right now. For those of you not familiar with Werewords, I'm going to show you how the game works. And for those of you that are already familiar with it, you can use the timestamp that I placed below in the description of this video to jump to the What's New section in this Deluxe Edition. Since this is for a Kickstarter preview, all the components you see here are prototype material. For example, the back of these have the One Night Ultimate Werewolf sleeves that are used in some of other Bezier games, but they're here just to help us put this prototype here together for you. And so you'll want to check out the Kickstarter page to see all of the final components. So here are the roles being used in a very basic 5-player game. And here we have the werewolf, which is on its own team, denoted by sort of the reddish background, where all the other characters are in the village and they have sort of a bluish background. So all these characters are working together and the werewolf is working against them alone. Now through a hidden and randomized process, one player will be the mayor. They'll flip that up. They're going to be the ones answering the questions throughout the round. Now it's important to note that the mayor also has a secret role. So the 5 players are the mayor, which also has a secret role. 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have the 5 players. Each player will look at their secret role, but will not show them to anybody else. Now the game is app driven, so one player in your group will need to download the free app at BezierGames.com. And here we have the Werewords Deluxe app open. Here we see at the bottom left, we have it set for 5 players. We have all of the roles selected that we have in this game. And as we mentioned, the village team is on one side and the single werewolf is on another side. Now we talked about the mayor there in the upper left. That's the one that's going to know the magic word and answering only with yes or no's tokens that we'll show you in just a moment. The ones on the bottom there are villagers. They're just plain old villagers. They have no special abilities, but they're on the villagers team. Up at the top next to the mayor, as I'm deselecting and selecting it so you can see it, the seer there, they're on the villagers team as well, and they will also secretly get to see the magic word, and they're going to try to point the village team to it without being too obvious, because the werewolf that you see here that I'm selecting, they're going to be trying to throw people off of the magic word because they'll secretly get to see it too, and they don't want them to get it, because if they don't get it, the villagers don't get the word, then the werewolf wins. Now, the reason why the seer is trying to be particular about how they get them there is because if the villager team wins, then the werewolf will get to guess which one is the seer, and if they do that, then the werewolf will win in the end. Now, obviously there's difficulties you can set. Right now we're set to easy words. I'm gonna go ahead and hit play and show you how the app walks all of the roles through this.
Everyone, close your eyes. Mayor, wake up and tap your secret role.
And since the mayor can also be one of these other roles, we're going to tap which one it is. In this case, we're just going to hit villager.
Mayor, choose a magic word.
So it's going to give them the mayor a choice as what the magic word. Let's pick spaghetti. So we just click that.
Mayor, here is your magic word.
And just to show them for sure, the mayor, what the magic word is, it shows it.
Mayor, close your eyes. Seer, wake up and view the magic word.
Now the seer gets to see that same magic word, and remember, no one else can see who the seer is.
Seer, close your eyes. Werewolf, wake up and view the magic word.
Now the werewolf gets to see that same magic word, and no one gets to know who the werewolf is.
Werewolf, close your eyes. Everyone, wake up. You now have 4 minutes to figure out the magic word.
And so as that clock is ticking down on the app, players are asking the mayor questions that are yes or no questions, like is it bigger than a house? And the mayor cannot answer with their mouth. They have to answer with specifically these tokens. Now they're double-sided, as you can see. There's no on one side, yes on the other. So let's say this player asked and said, hey, is it bigger than a house? Well, the mayor would not say anything. They would just simply place one of these tokens next to that player. Let's say this player asks and says, is it smaller than a bowling ball? And, you know, they might think about it and they go, you know what? I'm not sure, really. And they just give like a I don't know type of answer. Then maybe this player says, is it found in the kitchen? And then this player might go, okay, yes. And maybe this player asks another question. Is it an appliance? And this player would say no. So it's free form. All the players are asking as many questions as they like, yes or no questions to the mayor. And at some time, he might get a question that's way off, and he would give that person one that says, no, that's way off. Or maybe this player asks a question that's really close. They can give this thing that says, so close. And if they finally get it correct, they would give this big correct sign. Now, these tokens here are also shown in the app. And so these questions are going to be asked as the timer is going down, and one of three things is going to happen. In the upper left, you see the tokens with the red line through it. That means if you run out of tokens, there's only a certain amount of questions you can ask. If all of the correct/incorrect tokens are used, you would hit that, and that would essentially end the round. If they're correct, you'd hit that big yellow star in the upper right. And of course, if you need to pause, you could pause it as well. Now let's assume that they got it correct. The mayor would hit that correct yellow star up there in the upper right.
Congratulations! You discovered the magic word. Werewolf, turn your card face up. You now have 15 seconds to find the seer.
So the werewolf's going to flip over their identity, and they're going to basically point at which player they think did the best job of getting them there, the one that seemed to know the most, to try to get the seer. And then basically if they did find the seer, the werewolf wins. If not, then the villagers win.
Time is up. Werewolf, 3, 2, 1, vote.
And so now the villager would point at who they thought. That player would flip over their roll card. And again, if it was the seer, then the werewolf would win. If not, then the werewolf would lose and the village team would win. Now let's say we're getting towards the end of a round. This is a different round where there's a new magic word. And let's show you what happens. One of the other ways it can end is if the time runs out. It'll automatically work your way into the voting section.
Time is up. Crikeys! You ran out of time. Everyone, you now have 1 minute to find the werewolf.
And since the villagers weren't able to find the magic word, the werewolf temporarily looks like they're going to win. However, all of the non-werewolves basically get to find the werewolf. They're talking about who it is, and they're pointing, but no rolls are flipped over yet, so you're not really sure who is who, and so you're trying to talk it out. The werewolves are trying to put blame on other people, and everyone is trying to figure out who the werewolf is, and there's a lot of discussion going on at this point. And as it gets down to the end, people are going to end up voting once this minute ends to see who is the werewolf. People are going to try to point at the werewolf if you're a villager team.
Time is up. Everyone, 3, 2, 1, vote.
And so everybody would vote, and whoever has the most fingers pointed at them would reveal their role. If they're a werewolf, then that werewolf is killed and the villager team wins. Otherwise, the werewolf wins. Now, another way the round can end is if all of those yes or no tokens have been given out to all the players by the mayor and they run out. You would then tap that little icon in the upper left showing the tokens crossed out.
Oh no! You ran out of tokens. Everyone, you now have 1 minute to find the werewolf.
And you do the same thing as we just did when running out of time, is the werewolf essentially has sort of temporarily won unless everyone can, as a majority, pinpoint the werewolf. Now, when it's time for the mayor to tap its secret roll, now the mayor might be a seer, which means there's not another seer on the villager team that gets to see the word and push them towards it. Or the mayor might be a werewolf. And in this case, when they're handing out tokens, they can actually lie. It's interesting for the other players to know this, because if you're getting weird answers, you can maybe think that the mayor might be a werewolf. Now, so far we've been looking at easy words, but if you tap where it says easy words, you can move to medium words, or hard words, or ridiculous words. There's actually 15,000 unique words built in here. Now, those are the default words, but there's also ways that you can get to word lists there in the middle, and you can have some built-in lists. So by default, it's randomizing them all, but there's some specific to food or literature or movies, music, 50s and 60s and 80s. But there's also community lists, which you could actually even add to, and there's all sorts of different ones like occupations, shows, video games, and these are things that the community have done. On the right, it tells you whether it's easy, medium, ridiculous, or hard. Now it's easy to create your own lists. You can just create a new one, you can enter a list name, and you can type or paste the words in here one per line, and also set the difficulty and save it. Now up until this point, we've been playing with one werewolf because we were playing with less than 7 players. However, if you're playing with 7 or more players, you can add a second werewolf. And if you're playing with 12 or more players, you add a third werewolf. And when playing with multiple werewolves, all of the werewolves get to see each other so they know who they're working with. And if the magic word is guessed correctly, each werewolf gets to point at a different player, and if even one of those is the seer, the werewolves win. And conversely, if the magic word is not guessed, the players only have to find one of the werewolves in order to win. Now another role is the beholder, and they're on the villager team, and they'll get to secretly see who the seer is, and so they're trying to protect the seer by trying to play off what they're saying and try to be obvious, because at the end of the round, if they have guessed the magic word right, if a werewolf points at the beholder, the villager team still win, so the beholder is essentially trying to cover for the seer. Now if you're using the minion, they're part of the werewolf team, as you can tell by the red background, and at the beginning they'll get to secretly see the werewolf or the werewolves if you're playing with more than one. Now if the magic word is not guessed and the village team points at the minion, the entire werewolf team loses. The mayor could have the minion as a secret role, and they can lie just as if they were a werewolf. However, the minion does not vote with the werewolves when they're trying to vote on the seer. Now before I start jumping into roles that are new in this deluxe version of Werewords, I want to invite and bring in the people that are already familiar with the game that jump to this as a timestamp. And one of the obvious things you'll see is that the artwork on both the cards and the app are completely revamped for this edition. Now the fortune teller gets to see the first letter of each word in the magic word. However, if the werewolves point at the fortune teller when the word is guessed correctly, then the werewolves win. And if there's both the seer and the fortune teller in the game, if the werewolves point to either one of these, the werewolves will win. And if the magic word is not guessed in successive games, then the fortune teller gets to see more and more letters. Now when the apprentice is in play, the village team always will have somebody to be able to see the magic word. Even if the mayor is secretly the seer, with the apprentice in the game, you'll still get to see the magic word as the apprentice. Because if the mayor is that seer, then the apprentice will be asked to look down at the screen and they'll get to see the magic word. However, if the mayor is not the seer, then the seer will get to see the magic word and the apprentice will get to look at the screen, but there won't be anything there. The masons are best for large groups that have 10 or more players, and both masons will secretly get to see each other, and since they're both on the villager team, they know they can trust each other throughout this game. The thing will get to tap the shoulder of one of its neighbors either to the left or the right of them. This lets that neighbor know that the thing is sitting right next to him and the thing is part of the village team. Now it's good for the village team because if the village team feels a tap, then they know that this player is the thing sitting next to him and not a werewolf. But it's also bad for the village team because if the thing taps a werewolf team member, then that werewolf team knows that the thing player is not the seer and it's one less player to rule out when they're trying to win at the end. Now the doppelganger is a special role that will be a stretch goal for this campaign, and the doppelganger will get to look at any one player's roll card, press that roll card into the app, and they'll get to basically do things like that roll. In this case, they'll actually get to see the first letters of the word. Now there's special rules for 2 players, and to play it this way, you'll use a werewolf, a mayor, and a villager, and then either a seer or a fortune teller. Let's say in this case, we played with the seer. Then you'll give one player the mayor face up, and in subsequent games you'll swap who has the mayor, and then you'll deal out one roll to each player secretly, and then you'll place the third one that was still face down off to the side. You'd continue to play the game as normal, and as you can see on the app there on the right, that once you select just a werewolf and a mayor, and either the seer or the fortune teller, in this case we're using the seer, it is set for 2 players there on the bottom left, because it uses special outcomes. Now if the magic word is guessed correctly,
congratulations! You discovered the magic word. Werewolf, turn your card face up. You now have 15 seconds to find the seer.
So that werewolf flips over their roll and tries to point, at this case, the seer, because that's the one we're playing with. Let's say they point at the mayor. If they are correct, then the werewolf would win. They could have pointed over here. If the werewolf's wrong, then the mayor would win. Now, if that word was guessed correctly and neither player was the werewolf, then both players win. Now, if the word is not guessed correctly, then both players discuss who they think the werewolf is. But in this case, unlike the normal game, they can't claim to be the villager or the seer or fortune teller. Now, both players point at either the other player or the extra card. If either player points at the werewolf, well, then the player pointing at the werewolf would win. And if both players point at the werewolf and it's the extra card, then both players win. Now, this version definitely feels different from the normal version because you're both either trying to get the word right if the werewolf is the third card, or more often than not, both players will know the magic word, but the guessing player has to pretend that they don't. Now, for the 3-player rules, you'll be using the mayor, villager, werewolf, and either the fortune teller or the seer. In this case, let's just say we're using the seer. And setup is the same as the normal game. The mayor will get a roll, so will the other two, and you play the game as normal. But the emphasis is much more on bluffing and trying to figure out what roles the other players are. Now, in this case, if the mayor is a villager, all 3 players will actually know the magic word, but those other 2 players have to act like they don't know. So this is sort of a different way to play the game, and it will result in a lot of different interesting strategies that you don't see in a normal game. Now, there's another way to play called speed words. In the bottom right, you'll see a grayed out clock. If you go ahead and click that, the play button turns into play speed words, and the speed timer is only 2 minutes. So you have less time, but when the werewolf wakes up, they'll have to press a letter that the other people get to see during the game. So they get a little bit more information, but it's also quicker. And as you can see, where the werewolf tapped, now the people get to see what the word is, how many letters. If it's 2 words, it shows you broken up, and it shows you the letter that the werewolf tapped. So for those of you that were already familiar with Werewords, as you can see, this is a big step up because it has new artwork, new roles, has a new way to play with speed words, has new rules for 2 and 3 players, it supports up to 20 players. Well, there you have Werewords Deluxe, and as you can see, Bezier Games has taken a game that was already great and made it even better. They did it by revamping the artwork in the game, on the tokens, and in the app. They also changed the app's narration and added new roles like the fortune teller, the masons, thing that goes bump in the night, and the doppelganger. They added special 2 and 3 player rules and a new quicker way to play called speed words. So whether you're new to Werewords or you have the original game and you want to upgrade, you can click the link below me in the description of this video and it will take you right to the Kickstarter project page, and I'm sure the folks at Bezier Games would love your support.